My name's Malcolm Metallica. I'm a co-founder of Terra Team, and this is my stack.
Hey, Malcolm, thanks so much for joining me, and thank you to the audience for coming back for episode two of This Is My Stack. So, for people who haven't heard of you or Terrateam before, do you want to explain a little bit about who you are and what you do?
So Terra Team is a collaborative tool built on top of Terraform, which is an infrastructure as code tool that allows you to transform code into running infrastructure in the cloud. It's cloud agnostic, so AWS, GCP, Azure, all those. And we build a specialized tool on top of GitHub specifically to allow your team to use that collaboratively.
Fantastic. That's really cool. And for yourself, what did your career look like to the point where you've now gone and founded Terrateam? How's that journey been?
I've been a software person for my whole life, pretty much. I remember getting old 386 computer, not old 386 computers, but 386 computers back when they were coming out, and assembling them myself, and then learning how to program BASIC. So I started pretty young with computers, and I got my first programming job probably when I was 19. And I got really lucky in that it was for a small startup, and I think there was just three of us. I didn't come on as a founder at that point. I was just an employee, and the founder really just had a lot of trust in me and let me make a lot of decisions and build out that stack how I thought it should be. And I either got lucky or I had good intuition and did it well, and that company turned out to be pretty successful. And it also helped me build a lot of confidence in my software development and my decision making around tech choices. And then from there, continued. I worked for an investment bank for a little while as a software developer. That ended in 2008, as a lot of things ended. And at that time, I decided I wanted to go back to grad school. So I went to grad school for something called bioinformatics, which is a mix of biology and computation. I like HCP, doing a lot of trying to use computers to pull information out of biological data. Um, and worked for the University of Maryland for a while. And again, I got very lucky where the person I was under gave me a lot of leeway. He had a lot of trust in my decisions. And we built this really cool product called Clover, which let pretty much anyone doing biological work pull our virtual machine down and then do some predefined pipelines, and it scaled to the cloud and all that. And that was a really great experience. So then after that, I decided I wanted to do something else. So I moved to Europe and I worked for a company called Klarna doing financial services again. And then it was a great experience. Went to Spotify after that. And then I decided I didn't want to work for somebody else at that point after several years of this. And I made a small consulting company that just made just enough for me to live, and I enjoyed that, but eventually I realized that you're limited into the number of hours you can put in is how much reward you get back. And me and my co-founder Josh had been talking for a long time, and we wanted to do a company together. We'd worked together at other companies, but we decided we wanted to do something just the two of us. And that's when we came across the idea for Terrateam. We'd both been doing a lot of infrastructure work, and we saw that there's many options for how you can collaborate using Terraform, but they didn't really fulfill the niche that we thought we could. And we wanted to stay lean. We're a bootstrapped company. We don't take any external funding. And we thought that if we focused really tightly on a GitHub experience, that would be narrow enough that as a small company we could succeed.
That's really, really cool. And You're obviously building this in a pretty unique situation, so that the keen-eyed viewers will have noticed that you've got an interesting backdrop, which has also lent itself very well to your acoustics, I must say. So you're building a really cool software company from a boat. Do you want to tell us a bit more about how you're managing that?
Yeah, so for a long time I'd been making jokes about, oh, I'm gonna like live on a boat and I'll fight pirates and all that. And but I didn't really think it was a thing you could do. And then, like a lot of people during COVID, I fell into the YouTube rabbit hole and I discovered this whole world of people living on boats, and just having great, exciting lives that way, but also maintaining either a business themselves or somehow a source of income. And I thought, hey, this seems really cool. I think I can do this. So I sold everything, sold my home, took that money, found a boat, and earlier this year in March, I bought it and moved on to it. And I've been working on the company as well as fixing up the boat the entire time. So right now, I'm in St. Lucia in the Caribbean, which is very beautiful. I highly recommend coming here. It's got beautiful beaches. My boat is a 39-foot OCaml Sharky from 1983. It's a really great cruising boat. It's really strong. You can put it up against some serious waves and it'll come out the other end.
Very nice. I'm currently calling from a very rainy and cold flat in South Edinburgh. So perhaps I might start doing the same thing. I just need to learn to sail. Um,
That's the easy part, trust me.
yeah, I can imagine. How's the experience of just something as simple as getting a stable internet connection, even in 2023? Is that a challenge?
So Starlink, which is new, has complete game changer for all this. Before I got Starlink, I was using my cell phone, and it could go in and out. Usually, it was 3G, 4G if I'm really lucky. And Starlink, once I got that, I've got amazing internet all the time. It works fantastic. It works when I'm on passage on the boat, or when I'm just sitting at a dock somewhere. It doesn't matter what country I'm in and how good their internet infrastructure is. Which so like I can't say enough how much of a game changer Starlink is. It's really amazing. It's affordable and it works really really well. So the internet's not really a big problem. I would say the thing that impacts me the most doing development is you're very um, in the hands of Mother Nature, let's say, and you will go to a bay, for example, and anchor, and it might be great when you anchor, and then some swells and some waves come in. And for me, at least, I don't get seasick, but I cannot concentrate if I'm getting tossed around in a strong swell. And so sometimes I'm trying to work, and I'm like, I just got to relax a little bit and go do something else because I can't concentrate as I'm moving around this much. It's like imagine you're at a desk and someone has just sort of put your desk on like a big like gyro or something, and they're moving around, and you're like trying to like figure out how to solve a programming problem, and you're just like the world's moving around you, and it's like, all right, no,
I guess there are worse places to take a break than in the middle of the Caribbean Sea, right?
yeah, exactly. It's nice you can be like, "Oh, I want to take a break. I think I'll just go jump in the water and swim around for 15 minutes and then come back."
My equivalent of that is walking to the local park and try not to get too wet. So it's much of the same, really.
Yeah, same thing. Water, both cases.
Nice. And in terms of Terra Team and your stack, how does that look from the very top layer of even your marketing website down to the deepest, darkest infrastructure?
Yeah, so there's two sides to that are very different stacks. So our marketing page, our landing page, our website, which is terrateam.io, is all through Vercel and it's managed through Next.js. Um, and that doesn't integrate with our backend at all. So
Mhm.
that's Next.js. So pretty standard, I think, set up for that sort of thing. Our actual product software, I think, is probably pretty unique in that it uses almost no software that I didn't write myself. So one thing is we don't have a UI, like a website UI for the software right now. We're working on it. And our UI is completely inside of GitHub. So what happens is you make a change to your Terraform code, and then you create a pull request, and that sends a message to our backend, which then we process and decide whether we should run a Terraform plan or Terraform apply or something like that. And we have the output in the pull request itself. So everything is right there for you inside tools you're already using. One of the values we have is even if we have a UI, we never require you to go to our UI to accomplish something. We want everything at your fingertips inside tools you're already accustomed to using. And then you interact with the software within that pull request. So let's say you've done a plan, everything's okay, everyone has approved it, and you're ready to apply it. You can either, depending on your configuration, you can either merge it, in which case we will take that and automatically apply it for you. Or you can say, you comment saying Terra Team apply, and we'll run an apply, and then all the output goes back into the pull request as well. We also have, we built on top of GitHub Actions. So we're very embedded in the GitHub ecosystem. We wanted very tight coupling with all of GitHub. So we wanted it to be a very first class GitHub experience. So we run all this computation inside GitHub Actions, which is really nice because we don't have access to any secrets in there. Everything runs inside of the customer's environment, so they have complete control. They can see exactly what it's doing. They can start it and stop it. And so we have logging that takes place inside of a GitHub action, and then they can go get the logs if they want more detail. But if everything goes right, everything is inside the GitHub pull request for you.
That's really cool. And also as well, you have the security by design, almost of the way that
Exactly.
it's all handled on away from you.
Yeah, as a small company, we've really tried to make a lot of decisions around what information do we feel comfortable having from the user or taking from the user, and which information do we not feel comfortable. So things like secrets, we don't want access to your secrets at all. And that's one reason we rely so heavily on GitHub Actions. It's a great fit for this sort of thing. We also store no personal data. We really just sort of store, here's the work we're doing. We call it a work manifest, and here's the directories impacted by it and whether it succeeded or failed.
It's almost like the philosophy of each line of code you write, the more likely there is a bug. Like each bit of data you hold, the more likely it is there's some kind of security vulnerability. So it's a really good idea just to minimize it as much as possible.
Yeah, and all of this backend work and the UI that we're working on is written in a language called OCaml, which is
Okay.
definitely not the most popular language in the world. I've been working with OCaml for probably close to 2 decades at this point. I feel very comfortable in it. I like it a lot. I've also, as sort of a personal project, I started working on all these frameworks for common backend offerings people have. So I have a web UI, a web backend, and concurrency libraries, all that common backend tooling. And I sort of have a maxim which has actually informed my boating very well. So that like these two parts of my life have sort of converged in a way of a similar mindset. In that I try to be very self reliant when it comes to my software, and that means for the most part I avoid frameworks, but I will use libraries. And the reason for that is I have used a lot of frameworks in the past, and my my personal experience has been that I can often get stuck debugging the framework, or if I'm trying to do something kind of weird or outside what the framework does naturally, then I spend a lot of time trying to work with the framework, and or work against the framework, I should say, rather than solving the problem I have. And yes, many frameworks can get you up and running very quickly. And you do the hello world on a Django tutorial, something like that, and it's very fast. But at least in my experience, once you start doing much more complicated things, then that sort of falls apart. So I have built a lot of my own frameworks, and my belief, I don't have any quantitative data for this, is that in the long run, I'm as productive or more so, because whenever I run into a bug, I can just change the framework to do what I to fix it. Or if I'm trying to do something that the framework as I wrote it doesn't do very well, I can just change it and I don't have to care about if it's going to be accepted upstream or learning a bunch of code that I didn't write. And it only impacts me. So I change it and then I fix my code and I move on. So for me, that's been a very good and successful experience. And I also just sort of enjoy it. And I think there's not as much appreciation of making tech decisions that you just enjoy versus trying to justify it at a technical level. There's so many blog posts about, oh, why we chose Rust, why we chose Go, and they try to give a technical explanation of why that is. And I think a lot of that, in my opinion, is sort of justifying, I like Rust or I like Go. And yeah, there's some merit, but a lot of languages are at the end of the day much closer than a lot of people would like to a lot of us would like to admit. Like the difference between Python and OCaml is far in some ways, but still they're general purposes languages trying to solve problems. And I happen to enjoy getting out of bed and writing OCaml, and I enjoy writing Python less. So it works for me.
I'm glad you said that because I think it's something that is often really just not taken into account, as you say. The marginal gains of choosing a certain tool for a certain reason, because a blog post, say for example, Rust versus Go, seems to be a debate that constantly rages. The marginal gains from choosing something that may be slightly better versus choosing something you actually enjoy working on, you're more likely to be more productive. You're more likely to stick in that extra hour when you feel like it because you're not constantly battling it. Like there's a reason why I quit using Java after attempting to use it for work. Like I begged them, I was just like, please just put me on front end going forward. It's because if you enjoy something, you're going to be more productive in it anyway. And I think sometimes we lose the human in human computer interaction, which is a very important component.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. So that's the backend component. And underneath that, we use Postgres. Um, like I said, we're a small company trying to be lean, and we don't expect 10 million requests per second or anything like that at any point in our future. So we just use stuff that works pretty well. A lot of our concurrency management between requests actually happens inside of Postgres. So we have a lot of rather not a lot, but like some rather complicated SQL statements that do things like lock a row because it's going to be used in this update, something like that. And SQL is I learned a lot of new SQL in building Terrateam, and you can do such amazingly powerful stuff in SQL that some of it's kind of scary. You do have to be a little cautious of like, well, I'm going to try to do this in SQL, but maybe I shouldn't. But yeah, it's such a powerful language, and the debugging experience isn't necessarily the best. But I have a pretty robust local debugging setup, so it's good. I actually there is a bit of a like a code golf aspect to it of like, all right, but can I do it in SQL?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like I properly learned SQL last year after putting it off for ages, and it is great. Something I'd recommend people that if they're a bit intimidated by it, you can kind of step into it through Superbase, and they do amazing like tutorials and stuff. And they have this AI SQL builder, so it will build the query for you. You just it's like a language model where you just enter what you want to do, and then it will build an actual query for you. You can adjust it from there. So I plug Superbase all the time on this show. And while they've tweeted about it, they've never sponsored it. So come on, guys, you know what to do.
You got a biggest fan right here.
Yeah,
Did does that builder use I think it's called common table expressions? It's the with statement.
yeah, it does. Yeah.
Once I discovered that, that completely changed how I approach SQL. Because before that, I thought you just basically had to jam everything into your select or insert. But common table expressions basically let you make variables. I mean, they look like SQL tables, but it really lets you break up your SQL into the meaningful components and then combine them later. And I find that just changed everything for me.
And a couple of the non-technical founders that I know have actually found learning SQL so useful for the work they're doing as well. It's such a powerful thing to know. Arguably, it is the most for the average person on the street. I would say SQL or Python is the best technology to learn.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. And then for me, Postgres I think is a great solution because it really values getting SQL correctly. And I know there's been a long debate about which is faster and all this stuff between MySQL and PostgreSQL. Again, for our workloads, PostgreSQL is great. It's very well supported. The documentation on PostgreSQL.org is fantastic. And they have the SQL statements broken down very well and all that. So it, I think it's a great database engine. I don't know what it's like once you start getting into really ridiculous workloads, but for us, it's been great. And then below all that, we run everything on Fly.io, and that just sort of works.
Just because it just works.
Yeah, yeah. You have your TOML file, and you run Fly on it, and then you're done.
Yeah, I always think that's the biggest thing that can be great about any kind of platform as a service. Like I always say that about Vercel. Like every single side project I have, I just deploy it on Vercel. Just link it up with the GitHub repo. I always just end up using Next.js anyway, so it just runs like an absolute dream. And if something just runs and you don't have to think about it, that is the absolute gold standard. Like it doesn't have to do fancy tricks all the time, you know.
Yeah. And we've also designed it so we're using, like I said, we're using Postgres. That's pretty standard. And then we have our backend that just runs inside of container, and we deploy that on top of Fly.
Mm.
And we've kept things pretty separated so that if we do need to switch off of Fly, well, it's just a data migration to another provider. And we are not so integrated into any specific offering Fly has that we couldn't replace it very easily. So, again, as a small, lean company, we've made decisions around not integrating too hard with any specific things beyond like Postgres, where we know this is going to be around forever and we can run it all these different places. We do want to be nimble, and if we do come across something where Fly is not the right solution anymore, or we're scaling in a way we didn't envision before, we could move over to AWS if we want, or GCP, or something else, or even run ourselves if that made sense.
Do you envision a future where you could potentially run it kind of on-prem? Because I know there has been a bit of a movement towards that. I mean, I don't know how much of a movement it is, or more just DHH tweeting about it, but there's been a bit of conversation about it at least.
We've talked about it a few times. As it stands right now, it would really come down to if it made sense financially for us. And Fly is so cheap that no, it probably wouldn't. We were originally on AWS, and then we realized we could half our bill just by switching over to Fly.io. And that was a no brainer for us. We did that in the span of a week or something like that. Um, and the nice thing with Fly is you get to go, they deploy you across the whole globe. So you get, and then they route your Postgres queries to the right host and all that. So they have a lot of stuff that just makes it convenient there. I think there is clearly some point where you have enough requests that, and the machines you can get on prem are just beefy enough where if it makes sense to consolidate them, just do it. We're not there yet. I think it could be kind of fun at some point.
You said you managed to halve your bill by moving to Fly. Do you know why that was?
Fly just had cheaper rates. Like we don't use anything particularly special. We were just using EC2 and RDS, and with Fly, those offerings were just cheaper.
Fair enough. I mean, I
Yeah,
guess that's as good a reason as any.
yeah,
It's weird. I've always assumed AWS was just cheaper.
yeah. So another thing about keeping our stack so simple is it actually makes it pretty easy to do price comparisons because hey, we just use compute and Postgres. What are those costs on this one? What's it here? We know how much storage we use, so the comparison becomes pretty straightforward.
Do you have to do anything special around OCaml, or does it not matter if it's containerized?
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. So OCaml compiles the language into a binary.
Mhm.
So we just compile that on a GitHub action and then put it in a container and go. It's similar to like what a lot of people like about Go and Rust is you just get this single binary that you can run on a similar environment. So it's very straightforward in that way, which is nice.
And if someone wants to learn it, because to be honest, I think I've vaguely heard of it before. I've never really heard of it being used. If someone wants to learn it, where would you recommend they can check it out?
OCaml.org. They have all the links to all the documentation, tutorials. There's a few books out there as well. The main one's called The Real World OCaml, and I think the second edition is being worked on right now. One thing I really like about OCaml is it's a fairly simple language. So it's statically typed. So being statically typed is really valuable to us because as we refactor the code, if we do it in the right way, the compiler tells us all the places we have to fix before it will build, and then we can run it, which is very nice. And for example, the main logic of our application takes a GitHub webhook and then runs it through a state machine to decide what to do on that. So if you, for example, if you open a pull request, we get an open pull request event, and then we look at who sent it and whether they have access to do an operation. We look at what files have changed to understand if they are files that trigger us doing something. And as we've added new features, for example, RBAC, we had to refactor the state machine. So the way I did that is I made a change to the types on the state machine that would make it so where the RBAC would impact it, that part of the code would no longer compile. And then I go and I fix that to support RBAC, and then it compiles. And then I know pretty closely that it's going to work. We have a pretty big end to end test suite with, I think, like 200 plus tests on it. But that initial layer of the compiler doing something for me is really awesome because it reduces the amount of testing that I personally have to do. So I save a lot of time by just writing the code in a way where the compiler will verify I'm doing things correctly. And then I can spend my time writing the feature and writing an end to end test, which gives us a lot more value than I think a unit test for. If I have to spend 5 minutes somewhere, that's where I want to spend my time.
Yeah, I strongly agree with that. I think that's probably actually my strongest opinion in software engineering is that I think end-to-end tests are so much more valuable than unit tests because it encompasses the idea of we're building technology here to either make money or save money for our our organization, and we do that by serving our users as well as possible. So we need to figure out how users are actually going to use this, and there's no point testing things unrealistically in isolation when you can actually test it how someone actually would use it. I mean, how do you actually build those end-to-end tests? Considering you're a dev tool company, I could imagine that not being the simplest. I can't even figure out how you do it. Actually, how do you do it?
Yeah, so it's a lot of shell scripts, but they're good shell scripts, trust me. So we have we call it a system test directory, and in that we've broken up our tests by the various functions we have. So we have one called basic, which is sort of the normal flows you customers might use, and then specific ones for the different features. And we have an organization and repository in GitHub that we've pre-set up to have teams we can test with for example, for RBAC that have certain permissions, etc. And I've created a whole bunch of helper scripts that, for example, say, hey, take this directory, make the repository look like this and push it. Oh, and then make this branch and make that branch look like this and push it, and then keep on checking the pull request. Oh, make a pull request out of that, and then keep on checking it every 10 seconds to see if this string shows up in it.
Dev tool companies, like it's no secret that they're basically, especially in combination with AI, obviously, dev tool companies in general are seen as like the big thing right now to build. What advice would you give someone who wants to build a product in this area?
Oh, advice. I think the biggest thing for us is to, and this is such milk toast advice because everyone gives it, but everyone gives it because it's true, and that is stick to a problem you actually have. Uh, we don't have an AI solution because we don't do AI stuff personally. Maybe someday we will. And we've sort of talked about it, but we look at it and we're like, no, this just isn't us. Like
Don't want to just chase a buzzword.
Yeah, we don't think the solution is there for how we think the problem should be solved, and we're not going to do it just because it's hot and trendy.
Totally understandable, because I think the worst thing you can do is chase trends and not build what you know. Like the reason why I am building startup grad jobs and plugging it on here is because I got my start as a graduate recruiter and then through a weird long story learnt code and became a software engineer because it's something that I know, and it's two areas that I know: building scalable web applications and graduate recruitment. So I totally agree with you. It's kind of capitalizing on what you know the best of. So for me, if I was build a dev tool, I'd maybe build something around the Next.js ecosystem rather than trying to solve some problem that I really don't know much about in the first place anyway.
Yeah, I think it's really dangerous following trends. Sometimes it works out great for you, but unless that's you know you can be really into a trend genuinely. If it wasn't a trend, you would still want to do it, and that's something you should pursue. But if you look at something and just see dollar signs, it is a lot of work to build things. We've been working on this for 2+ years, and we're just slowly growing over time. Like you sort of start out being like, in 6 months I'll be paying my salary, and
Yeah.
no, that's not the reality. You got to be able to endure,
Yeah, I mean, if you're 6 months in, you even got paying customers, you're doing well, in my view, honestly. Like, I've been plugging away at mine for. We launched 4 months ago, and yeah, it's hard to even get people to use something for free. That's the biggest thing I've learned from this.
Yeah, it's
Cool.
tough, and you got to be able to put the time in. So it has to be something. Like it goes kind of back to technology solution. Like you have to choose technology that you enjoy using, and it's okay if you find a lot of blog posts that say that technology is no good or it doesn't work, as long as you feel confident and you enjoy writing it. I think you can persevere through that and solve a lot of problems.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, 80% of the internet still runs on PHP, so that
Yeah,
tells you all you
exactly.
need to know. Cool. But yeah, it's been really, really awesome speaking, Malcolm. And if people want to keep up with what you're working on and keep up with Terra Team or even check out what offerings you have, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, the best place to go is terrateam.io. That's our website. You can also join our Slack channel. We are very responsive. One thing that's really important to us is good support. So we are incredibly responsive there. We help out as much as we can. Um, we have very quick turnaround on bug fixes, we're told by customers. That feels good. So check out the website, join the Slack, say hi. If you want to see my sailing, I have a YouTube channel called Boring Sailing.
That's linked in the description now.
All right, great. It turns out to be not as boring as I was hoped, but I'm working there. I want it just to be, I don't want to watch this because nothing exciting happens.
Nice. I'll be sure to check that out. So, viewers, make sure to jump straight over to that channel right now. But before you do that, make sure to put a like on this video and leave a comment for myself and Malcolm. What questions do you have after checking out this interview? And what do you want to hear about next that may be sparked from this conversation? Or if you want to appear on the show, do let us know. But thank you for watching.